Hi, everyone, and welcome to our viewers and our esteemed guests to another episode of Spoken and Heard. I am Haley Mitchell Haugen. I'm the founding editor of the quarterly poetry journal Sheila-Na-Gig Online, now wrapping up our 10th year of publication, and the small press Sheila-Na-Gig editions with more than 80 anthologies, individual poetry collections, and chapbooks published since 2017. These projects fall under our umbrella of our 501c3 nonprofit arts organization, Sheila-Na-Gig Inc., where we strive to uplift new and established poets everywhere. I hope you'll check us out at Sheila-Na-Gig-blog.com, where I encourage you to read the journal and to, of course, support our authors by buying their books. It is my honor tonight to offer the platform for Kari Gunter-Seymour's Spoken and Heard program. Been very exciting to offer these pieces. Kari Gunter-Seymour is the immediate past poet laureate of Ohio and a recipient of an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship, IPPY Bronze Award, NYC Big Book Award, a National Federation of Press Women Award, and Feathered Quill Award. She's executive director of Women of Appalachia Project and the editor of its anthology series, Women Speak. Gunter-Seymour is a retired instructor in the E.W. Scripps School of Journalism at Ohio University and the editor of I Thought I Heard a Cardinal Sing, Ohio's Appalachian Voices, funded through the Academy of American Poets and an Andrew W. Mellon Foundation grant. She was selected to serve as a 2022 Dodge Poetry Festival poet and is a Pillars of Prosperity Fellow for the Foundation of Appalachian, Ohio. Her work has been featured in a variety of journals and publications, including World Literature Today, American Book Review, Poem a Day, Katie Couric's Wake Up Call, and the New York Times. Always happy to have you here. Kari, welcome, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Haley. And I'm beyond excited to be here tonight. And of course, I'm always so grateful to the wonderful Sheila-Na-Gig, who will be broadcasting our events this spring and fall. And as always, a huge thank you goes out to the Ohio Arts Council for sponsoring the 2026 season of Spoken and Heard. I want to welcome our audience tonight, those who are with us here and those who will stream us later on social media and YouTube. It's National Poetry Month, and tonight I'm excited to welcome poets Jennifer Franklin and David Hassler, along with singer-songwriters Andy Milliken and Dan Canterbury. We'll do a short Q&A after the readings and the music, and for those of you with us tonight, please jot down your questions and be ready to enter them in the chat at the end of the readings. So let's begin. Andy Milliken is my musician in residence for the 2026 season of Spoken and Heard. He's also known as Ange McGillicuddy and explains that he is a poor mud farmer living in a shack he built on the banks of the mighty Raccoon, which is the longest creek in the world, with his dog, Oscar, his guitar, and the banjo his grandpa gave him. He writes songs about real life and Appalachian Americana in a sad boy alt country style. Dan Canterbury is often Andy's partner in crime, or so to speak. They perform at venues throughout Ohio and beyond. Tonight they're performing a song that Dan wrote and Andy arranged the music. We are in for a treat, folks. Hold on to your hats. Take it away, Andy and Dan.
Hey, thanks for having us, Kari. We're gonna do a Dan Canterbury song this evening. Nope, I'm not muted. We're golden. We're gonna do a Dan Canterbury song this evening. He let me change the guitar part a little bit, make it a little bit more John Prine. We have a bi-monthly gig at a flea market, and we have a little game we play there. Every time I play a John Prine song, I credit Dan, and every time I play a Dan song, I credit John Prine. Just kind of keeps us sane. We set up by the food court at the flea market. There's this little old lady that sits there the whole time, every time. And the first weekend we were there, you know, she sat there from 11 to 2 all day Saturday, and I waved at her and smiled and didn't really think anything of it. The next day, she sat there all day again, Sunday, 11 to 2. So I made it a point to go over and say hi to her and, thank her for putting up with 6 hours of us. And she says, oh, honey, I can't walk. They park me here in the morning. They come get me late afternoon. But I think we're getting through to her. Last time, she laid her head down about half the time like she was taking a nap in math class. But I think I made her my friend. We relate to each other because we both grew up during the Depression.
Wait a second, you were born in the 80s.
But I took Zoloft when I was a kid. Anyways, this is a Dan Canterbury number. Old dirt road, a pickup truck, a faithful dog down on my luck. The old home place, those good old days, the saving grace of old cliches. A broken heart, a broke down car, a rundown bar, a faded star, old girlfriend, a world of sin. It's a world of trouble we're living in. Sunrise gleam and a sunset dream. Most things are mostly what they seem, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes we're caught in between glory and what we got. Wanna pick one? Old as the hills, old as time. You got trouble, buddy, I got mine. I best be gentle, I best be kind. Don't wait till further down the line. Sunrise gleam and a sunset dream. Most things are mostly what they seem, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes we're caught in between glory and what we got. One more time, buddy. Old as dirt, old as sin, old as that hurt from way back when. That old man with a toothy grin. I've been waiting for you. Where you been? Sunrise gleam and a sunset dream. Most things are mostly what they seem, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes we're caught in between glory and what we got.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That was absolutely beautiful. I love you two to pieces.
Dan Canterbury, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, both of you were fantastic and wonderful. And thank you for picking such a poetic song tonight to share with us during National Poetry Month. That could not have been more perfect. Thank you so much, Andy and Dan. Thank you for being here and being my musicians. I appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to hear from David Hassler. David is the Bob and Walt Wick Executive Director of the Wick Poetry Center at Kent State University. With Poets for Science founder Jane Hirschfield, he and the Wick Poetry Center have led Poets for Science initiatives since 2017. In 2009, he co-founded Traveling Stanzas, a community arts project which brings poetry to the most urgent and evolving needs of our communities through expressive writing interventions, interactive exhibits, and digital platforms. Hassler is the author or editor of 11 books of poetry and nonfiction, including The Nature of Our Times, Poems on America's Lands, Waters, Wildlife, and Other Natural Wonders. And I just happen to have a copy of that tonight. I'm just so honored to have a poem in this beautiful, huge, beautiful volume. And just this week, it won first place award for Best Anthology from the American Book Fest. So this has been a wonderful week for the Science Center at the WIC. I'm so excited. David has also served as editor for Dear Vaccine, Global Voices Speak to the Pandemic, Growing Season, The Life of a Migrant Community, and Speak a Powerful Magic, 10 Years of the Traveling Stanzas Poetry Project. His play, May 4th Voices, Kent State 1970, based on the Kent State Shootings Oral History Project, was published by the Kent State University Press along with a teacher's resource book and was produced in 2020 as a national radio play by the WKSU NPR station. Hassler's awards include Ohio Poet of the Year, the Ohio Anna Book Award, the Carter G. Woodson Honor Book Award, and 2 Ohio Arts Council Individual Excellence Awards. His TEDx talk, The Conversation of Poetry, conveys the power of poetry to strengthen communities. In addition to his creative writing publications, he's co-authored articles on poetry, technology, and healing in the Journal of Palliative Medicine, the Journal of Technology and Teacher Education, and the online Journal of Issues in Nursing. You can find The Nature of Our Times at poetsforscience.org. You can find Dear Vaccine at Kent State University Press. You can also find out about both of these books and others of David's on my website, Kari Gunter-Seymour Poet, under the Spoken and Heard tab. In my 6th and final year serving as Ohio's Poet Laureate, I finally met David at a gala book launch event honoring the extraordinary Cuyahoga Valley National Park. I am happy to have met him, and I'm so happy to have him here with us tonight. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Kari. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here tonight and wonderful to begin with that music. Thank you, Andy. So I live and work here in Kent, but I also grew up in this town, and I thought I would never raise my family here and come back and actually work in the same university where my father taught for 48 years. But here I am at Kent State, and it's a great gift to be living in Kent. It's a fertile ground for poetry. And I'm going to start with a new poem that I wrote called Staying. And it's about visiting the Kent Bog. There's a wonderful group called Friends of the Bog that preserved this area, and it has pathways through it. And this is called Staying. Years ago, I returned to Kent for good. Now I come to the Kent Bog to slow down, to sink into the layers of my life. Here, a chunk of glacial ice broke free, was buried in silt and sand, a kettle lake. 11,000 years of becoming a bog. Sphagnum grows and dies in high acid, low nutrient water. The dead stacked tight, becoming deep peat soil. I walk the path reading names, plants and trees on little plaques, friends of the bog on benches, boards that bend beneath my feet, tannin dark water rising between slats. On one bench, sit with me a while. Each tribute a signpost holding me here among tamarack, spruce, and fir. Tom Cooperrider, Rufus-sided towhee, Gordon Vars, cedar waxwing, Fred Skock, highbush blueberry. My friend Mage once asked, "How did you escape?" And I knew he meant my grief. I said, "I escaped by staying here, living where my dead are buried, letting them settle into the landscape, layer by layer, blessing the soil beneath my feet." So I did travel after college and lived in Japan, taught English in Tokyo, and um, didn't know, that I would come back to Kent. And so this next new poem is called "The Common Carp." Of course, I grew up along the Cuyahoga River. My brother and I were river rats. Our house of our childhood was right along the banks. And this is a poem called "The Common Carp" with a little epigraph by Mary Oliver. "Attention is the beginning of devotion. I remember their sluggish bodies hung beneath low birch branches like dim lanterns, faintly shimmering in the dark current of the Cuyahoga. As a child, I wandered the riverbank, dragging a stick through mud, feeling the river's tug beneath my feet, living not in time, but in something like eternity. The muddy water oozed through my porous skin, the way it seeped across our basement floor after a heavy rain, my sense of self permeable. Years later, still wandering, I arrived in Japan and met the carp in another light, called by another name. Bred for their colors, treasured as living jewels, their scales glint like sunlight on water. Koi, a word for affection, for love. Legend says a school of carp fought the current swimming upstream through the Yellow River, but only one endured. Only one became a dragon. Pollution tolerant and common in my Cuyahoga. Here, they are enshrined in temple ponds, lifted as bright windsocks on slender poles, swimming in currents of air. Standing on a narrow bridge, gazing into a still pond, I return to my childhood river and find something of myself. I begin to see what is common may be treasure, what is slow is strong. A body glimmers just beneath the muddy current of the Cuyahoga. I want to read an older poem about the work that really kind of saved me. I got a job as a poet in the schools for the Ohio Arts Council right out of a graduate MFA program, and loved working with children and being this itinerant poet around driving around Ohio. This tells the story of actually my very first residency, not really knowing what to do. And I learned from the children that day how later to teach more intentionally. And it's called "Reaching to a Sky of Soba." I walk past winter boots lined up in rows. Through the door, Miss Brown's 10 o'clock 5A English. The students crowd around. They want to know how tall I am and if my hair is real. I hold out my hands to measure their heads. A stranger in the room, I stand near a small stool they call the author's chair. Snow falls outside beyond windows dressed with pilgrim hats and turkeys. Reading my poem, Eating Soba, I say poetry lets you talk to things you don't normally talk to, and here I'm talking to noodles as though my bowl were a smiling friend. In Japan, you can slurp as loud as you want. The louder, the greater the compliment to the chef. The class practices slurping. One boy asks, "Could you say the sky is a bowl of soba?" I smile, "Yes." Then the sun is a raw egg floating in it. Another hand appears. Trees are chopsticks. Heads turn to look out the windows, and clouds are steam rising above. The students gasp and applaud. Planets are onions. The moon is a bump at the bottom of the bowl. Earthquakes break up the noodles. Their rumbling is slurping. Our mouths are black holes breathing it in. God is the chef. Meteors are coins we throw down to pay. Then the shy boy looking at the floor raises his hand. The universe is a giant bowl of soba. We keep eating and eating until the last explosion. When the universe ends, he says, our bowl is empty. The bell rings, their hands still reaching in the air. Um, this this next piece is a little lyric prose, is a lyric essay called "The Wilderness Inside Him," and it tells another teaching story. Two stanzas into Carl Sandburg's poem "Wilderness," I stop reading. It's the last period of the day in Mrs. Skidmore's seventh grade language arts class at Miller South School in Akron, and I'm trying not to lose my cool. One student, Phil, has been acting out since the first moment I walked into the classroom. I remind the class to be good listeners. I parcel my gaze evenly around the room, careful not to look only at Phil. I resume reading this poem that describes the wild animals Sandburg feels inside himself, inside my ribs, under my bony head, under my red valve heart. I enunciate certain lines of the poem, establishing eye contact with students while Phil swivels in his chair, grinning and mock laughing as he mouths words to himself, looking animatedly around the room at everyone except me. Later, after a brief discussion, I ask the students to write. Most lean over their papers, but Phil announces to the whole class he has no idea what to write. He can't rein in his energy and direct it to the page. Though I was annoyed with him a moment ago, I suddenly feel a sympathy and even affection for Phil as a memory surfaces of actually being Phil myself. Hyperactive in my chair, bored by the teacher and lesson. Like Phil, I often disrupted my classes. I remember the repeated call from Mr. Wilson, my seventh grade social science teacher. Hassler, bring it in for a landing. Back then, I couldn't help myself. My mind always spinning. I felt stuck in my chair, chained to my desk for the duration of each period. Now I walk over to Phil's desk and kneel beside him. He says again, I don't know what to write, then looks over his shoulder at another boy who's already on his third or fourth line. Sure you do, I say. Just imagine something inside of you. I don't know, he says, shooting glances from side to side, refusing to return my gaze. How about a cow? He blurts out loudly and laughs. Okay, a cow, I say. That could work. Though I suspect it's meant to be a joke, I take it seriously. Describe that cow inside you, Phil, and what it might do. See if you can describe the cow in a way that captures something about you as well. For example, the way a cow eats and chews its cud, swallowing and re-swallowing mouthfuls of grass over and over. Finally, Phil looks at me, an intent gaze that desires to see through me, to judge whether my interest in him is authentic. Okay, I got it, he says, but I don't want to write about a cow. I know what I want to write. He turns away and begins. When I circle back to Phil's desk just a few minutes later, I'm thrilled to see what he's written. These are amazing lines. Oh, it's nothing, he says. For the first time, all period, his tone is serious. Would you read it to the class? No, he says, diving down to cover his paper as if he's jumping on a fumbled football. I don't want to read my poem. Come on, Phil, I say, having played this game with students many times before. I know that if I were to recite one of his lines to the class, they would love it and show their appreciation. It might even change the way they see him. Calculating that he'll forgive me for not taking his refusal seriously, I say to the class, "Listen, class, to one of Phil's lines." "No," Phil cries melodramatically, yet he let go of the paper in mock defeat and clutches his head in his hands as if assuming a duck and cover posture, preparing for disaster. I read to the class his line, "There is a piñata inside of me. For every puncture, there is something sweet." There's an audible gasp in the room. "Wow, that's good," one student says, and then another concurs. Phil gradually lifts his head up from his desk. "Yeah, Phil," Mrs. Skidmore says. "I guess we've got another poet in the class." "Okay, everyone," I say, "let's get back to our writing. No talking. Please, let's focus." 10 minutes later, when I circle back to Phil's desk, I see he has written 4 more lines. This time he shrugs his shoulder in a blasé way and says, "It's nothing really, but I can do a lot better." "Well, will you read your poem to the class?" "Come on, Phil," one boy says, "read your poem." "Please, Phil," Mrs. Skidmore says from behind her desk in the corner of the room. "Well, okay," Phil says, "but it's not done." He refuses to stand, but reads sitting down. There is a world in me that sometimes shows compassion and sometimes shows conflict. There's a piñata inside of me that for every puncture, there's something sweet. There's a computer in me that saves the present and deletes the past. There's a clock in me with time and life changing every second. The bell rings, and Mrs. Skidmore asks the students to put their poems in the metal basket on the windowsill in the back of the room. When Phil stands up, unfolding his legs from beneath his desk, he is much taller than most of the other 7th-grade boys, his shoulders much wider. I walk over to his desk as he takes his time gathering his books and papers. "Be sure to put your name on your poem, Phil," I say. "We might be able to use it for the spring poetry reading." "Well, it's not done," he says. "Besides, I can do better." By now, there is only a slight trace in his voice of his former belligerence. I stand next to him, and he speaks to me as someone he might consider his equal, someone who might have something to teach him. I know there is a wilderness inside Phil, a vast young world teeming with energy, just like the one my teachers saw inside of me, inside my ribs, under my bony head, under my red valve heart. There's a poet inside Phil, a free-thinking, wild, and restless boy, eager to be heard and loved. This last piece I want to read is kind of a lyric prose poem, and it's called "Kissing Lightning." The Ikung people in the Kalahari hold all-night healing rituals when someone in their village is ill or has suffered a loss. The women gather around the fire and begin dancing and singing and clapping. Then the men join in, and slowly the energy builds until one or several becomes filled with what they call Noom, the healing energy of the cosmos. They often collapse to the ground because of the intensity bordering on pain. Once one tunes into that energy, it can be shared and transferred to those who are ill or grieving. They say it is like kissing lightning. I've cried so many times while reading my poems during open readings at Last Exit Books in Kent and felt my grief observed, touched into matter. Like the observer effect, my grief could not become real to me, something I could face until it was seen and heard by the loving attention of others. My friend, poet Mage Reagan, once said he didn't come to Last Exit for the poems exactly. He could read those on the page himself. He came to feel what could happen when people gather together to read their poems to each other. Mayan shaman Martin Prechtel says that the enzyme of grief is always present, like yeasts that are in the air, ready to transmute what is toxic and hard to digest in grains into bread and beer, or change grape sugar into wine and vinegar, or like rennet in a calf's stomach, which converts what even a calf can't digest in his own mother's milk into delicious, life-giving cheese. Grief, as a spiritual enzyme, waits for our sorrow. We are changed by grief and have to allow it to instigate in us what it always has, the ultimate and only legitimate source of all human expression of beauty, real art, and kindness. I discovered the enzyme of grief waiting in the air at last exit, waiting to change me, metabolize my loss and shame into spiritual substance, become medicine for our community. I am convinced that we should solve many things, writes Miguel Unamuno, if we all went out into the streets and uncovered our grief, which perhaps would prove to be but one sole common grief, and be joined together in beweeping them. My friend Sandy told me she saw my essay online about my therapist, Vocata George. She said she also went to Vocata for years to work through issues with her own mother and thought of Vocata as a mother figure. We mustn't ever forget those who saved us, Sandy tells me. She said she carried an image of me from my mother's calling hours years ago that she has never been able to forget. She said she watched me standing by my mother's open casket, holding her hand and stroking it as people walked through Bissler's funeral home. She said I looked like I was not in my body at that time, but I wouldn't leave my mother's side. I have no memory of this, only a vague sense as a 12-year-old boy of the terrible injustice I believed was done to my mother's body and how it all felt wrong. In healthy cultures, Francis Weller writes, one person's wound is an opportunity for another to bring medicine. But if you are silent about your suffering, then your friends stay spiritually unemployed. Remember not to leave this world without ceremony. Mage instructed us in his poem, The Heartbeat of Ordinary Things. But my mother did, and I've spent years going back in time with my writing to create ceremony for my mother. Because healing ripples backwards and forwards. This writing has been my life's work, to write something worthy of her, to create ceremony for my mother. It was Mage who sat with me often at her grave in Standing Rock Cemetery and taught me how to hear her speaking to me through the open channel of his heart. If you are able to feed the other world with your grief, then you can live where your dead are buried, and they will become a part of the landscape. I have been seasoned and made whole, sitting in a circle with poets, one poem answering another, yoking solitude to community, drawing down healing energy from the charged air of poems. It takes more than one of us to speak. At times, it feels like kissing lightning. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, David. I can barely speak. I am just in awe of these beautiful, beautiful poems in the essay that you shared this evening. I love the way that you always go back to nature and, for healing, for energy, for for the answer to any questions you might have, and even for your students, to help them. And I really enjoyed hearing those poems. And we all love Phil for sure. And I want to hear more. I hope there's more about Phil
Thank you.
that we can find. But thank you so much for coming tonight on this, what we would call our special night, because it's National Poetry Month. So thank you so much. Oh my goodness. I need to catch my breath. I feel like I've been to church. Okay. So Jennifer Franklin is the author of 3 poetry collections, including If Some God Shakes Your House from Four-Way Books in 2023, which was a finalist for the Patterson Prize and Julie Sook Award. A Fire in Her Brain, epistolary poems to Virginia Woolf, Lucia Joyce, and Sylvia Plath, was a finalist for the 2025 Prairie Schooner Raz Shoemaker Book Award. Poems from her current manuscript in process have been published in American Poetry Review, the Bennington Review, Poetry Northwest, the Montreal International Poetry Anthology, and Poem a Day. Her work has been commissioned by the Metropolitan Museum and has also been published in the Paris Review, The Nation, and the Poetry Society of America's Poetry in Motion. Her work has won a Pushcart Prize and an NYFA City Arts Corps grant. She has been awarded residencies from the T.S. Eliot Foundation, Poetry by the Sea, and the Café Royal Cultural Foundation. She was interviewed for the forthcoming documentary Poetry is Not a Luxury, along with poets Jane Hirschfield, Joy Harjo, and Marie Howe. She is the co-founder and co-host of Words Like Blades, an online reading series that amplifies new work by marginalized emerging writers and their mentors. And she is co-editor of the anthologies Braving the Body, Smaller Harbor Publishing 2024, and The Big Brutal Act, which is coming out this year, and I'm so excited to be a part of that. She teaches in Manhattanville's MFA program, at Poets House, the Frost Place, Provincetown's Fine Arts Work Center online, and she teaches her own manuscript revision workshops. You can find If Some God Shakes Your House at Four-Way Books, and also at Four-Way Books, you will find No Small Gift. And I'm beside myself thrilled to welcome Jennifer Franklin.
Thank you so much, Kari. It's so nice to be here with all of you tonight. And it's an honor to read with David. And thank you, Andy, for your beautiful song. I think more poetry readings should have music to start us off. That was really wonderful. I'm going to read poems from my new collection, which is called A Fire in Her Brain. It'll be out in January from Princeton University Press. And I'll start out with the poem that Kari was talking about that won the Pushcart Prize. It was published on Poem a Day in March of 2023 in Diane Seuss's curation of that month. It's called Preparing for Residential Placement for My Disabled Daughter. My life without you, I have already seen it. Today on the salt marsh, the red-winged blackbird perched in the tallest tree, sage green branches falling over the water. She sat there for a long time, doing nothing. As she lifted up to fly, the slender branch shook from the release of her weight. When the bird departed, it seemed the branch would shake forever in the wind, bobbing up and down. When it finally stopped moving, the branch was diminished, reaching out to the vast sky. As Kari said, the next book that's coming out in January is a collection of epistolary poems to Virginia Woolf, Lucia Joyce, and Sylvia Plath. So this first poem, in that vein, is a poem to Lucia and my daughter. It's called Lucia Anna and Anna Livia, both named by James Joyce. Dear Lucia, I'm writing to you, but you can't answer. You can't answer, but I am writing to you. Because you can't answer, I am writing. I was 19 when I first found you. I am sitting down. In a few hours, I will be lying down. Your life is read backwards, everything examined under the magnifying glass of your diagnosis. You were always standing at the window, watching everyone you loved leaving. Everyone you loved left. You were at the window watching, always left, always alone, like pigs in the sty. A pig, a sty, those cramped and moldy rooms where you had no privacy, nowhere to be alone to dance. But then you were alone, alone for 30 years, by the window. Everyone agrees it all began when you threw a chair at your mother. Maybe it was your diagnosis, or maybe you could no longer suffer her disappointment. Your first memory, her voice yelling about breaking the doll. The doll's head was broken. She said you broke it. I would have thrown a chair at her too if she were my mother. She always blamed you. You were always wrong, wrong, wrong. Lucia, is it wrong how long I have mourned for you? 30 years and you are still surfacing. I have stopped trying to ignore your voice. I found the photo I taped on the nightstand in my dorm room and fit it for a tarnished silver frame. Your sideways stare looks into the distance. Your father believed you were a genius. I see you as he saw you, full of promise and passion. If he had not died, he would have visited you. No one moved like you, gold beaded and fish scaled, sad, slow sorrow, stealth of a beast. Beckett kept that photo of you in his desk for 60 years, though he visited you only once in your last sanatorium. In photographs, you always look off to the side, as if the world hurts too much to face. Forced to give up dancing, you cried for a month. Lucia, illuminator, maker of light, like the white marble statues unearthed in Greece, with only traces of the color that once covered them. You are some diminished version of your real self, bowed, fish-scaled, savage. The more I try to find you, the further you slip away, back into the asylums, up in smoke, with your letters that your nephew burned to silence you. I cannot save you, but I will not leave you. Your last decision was to not be buried beside them. Come out into the light, Lucia. Cut the phone wires. No one is listening. Come home. Come home. Come home. Live here with my wild girl born 8 years after I found you. Dear Anna Livia, I'm writing to you, but you can't answer. You can't answer, but I am writing to you. Because you can't answer, I am writing. I was 29 when I received your diagnosis. Good night noises everywhere. I read your life backwards, everything examined under the magnifying glass of your diagnosis. Good night, nobody. Your father wouldn't bring you to the doctor until you pulled the floor lamp down and it shattered like our life around your 2-year-old body. Maybe it was your diagnosis, or maybe you could no longer suffer his disappointment. Is your first memory your father's voice yelling? He couldn't believe you were not a genius, that you wouldn't be a doctor like him. He always blamed you. You were always wrong, wrong, wrong. Anna, is it wrong how long I have grieved over you? You are always standing at the window, watching everyone you loved leaving. Almost everyone you loved left. You were at the window watching. It's New York. Both of you, go now to the window. Sit on the bench and watch them walk away. Some for respite, some for a life without worry. Watch them walk away from you. Watch them at the window while you ask for them. They do not turn around after they leave. Your father has not seen you in 9 years. He will never visit you again. Anna, in photographs, you are always looking off to the side, as if the world hurts too much to face. I cannot save you, but I will not leave. Unable to sleep in this stifling apartment, coughing to death as I watch over you, unable to decipher your cryptic chatter. Lucia Anna, you're still dancing low to the ground, creeping across the floor, shoeless. And Olivia, you're dancing, arms flailing, the same way you move in water. You both sprawl your letters across the table, painting, talking to yourselves. I will never tell you to be quiet. There is nothing that hurts me more than the sight of your beautiful faces, your bobbed heads bent over the alphabet, adding color to each corner of the familiar shapes. Come home, come home, come home. The next poem I'm going to read is called Letter to Sylvia, February 11th. Each year, when the sharp threat of snow pierces me as I walk the dog, I think of your impossible words piled on the desk, waiting to be pressed between the covers of your last book, waiting in your bedroom while you fiddled with the gas. I refuse to believe this is what you wanted. Certain he would find you, save you from the fire in your brain. Unappreciated, you worked hard to create his fame. Wounded, abandoned, with endless childcare, insatiable need of babies crying into the harsh morning light. Men take and take until there is nothing recognizable left. I know what drove you to a room full of weapons, knives, flame, gas, until you thought in sleep-deprived delirium that they offered oblivion, a lover's hand on your neck. This is called Upon Learning That Stephen Joyce Burned Everything His Aunt Lucia Wrote, I ask, what kind of man does it take to burn every letter, every poem, each painstaking page of a novel written by a woman caged within walls, away from the world, to burn every last trace of her mind, what she thought, what she wanted, all the letters to her father who died trying to save her? See her in the sanatorium by the window, waiting for her mother, who never once visited. What does it take to inherit and unbox all the words she wrote for 5 decades and throw them into the flames? Watch them ignite, watch them burn. This is called Dear Lucia. I have kept your photograph longer than those of any of my lovers. I have looked at your face more often than whatever mirrors have thrown back at me in sharp autumn, in unforgiving spring. You are with me when I am most myself, creeping through the rooms, half fish, half feral, all unrelenting desire. Beckett saved the photograph from your last performance, but had to hide it in his desk so it would not undo him. If these pictures burned in a fire, I would still see you, lidded eyes looking over your shoulder to that patch of sky where birds go to be free. Virginia Woolf, and the River Ouse. I cannot stop thinking of the moment you decide you must fill your pockets with stones so you will sink and not be saved, so you will drown in the river you loved while Leonard reads in the garden. I cannot stop thinking about how you walked past him without a word after leaving that letter in the living room on the mantelpiece where you wrote that everything had gone from you but the certainty of his goodness, blamed yourself for spoiling his life. All life lived in your brain that burned and burned with words. I can't stop thinking of the fear that gripped him as he found your walking stick you left at the bank of the river. How he waited for 3 weeks, battered, beaten like some hunted animal, battered, beaten like some hunted animal looking for its lair. He waited until children found your water-ravaged body under a bridge in Southeast. I cannot stop thinking about how you must have felt penning your last letter, that last act of love to assuage Leonard's guilt, or the moment you dropped your hat in the grass just before you searched your pockets with your long fingers for the smooth stones, stroked them as you did each one of the beloved dogs you called to mind again with your other loved ones, and one by one let them go as the cold water rose to meet you, unvanquished and unyielding, buried under the elm, alone. I'm going to read 2 more poems. This one is for Sylvia Plath. It's called To Sylvia After the Dust Settled. After I had cancer, but before my diagnosis. After I left him, but before he initiated the eviction to remove me and his daughter from our rent-stabilized apartment. I didn't know that the unknown that swallowed me like the darkness of Fontegaume would be my greatest gift, its freedom more complete than that of animals running, painted on prehistoric walls in ochre, oxide, charcoal. I ran out of that apartment, that neighborhood, out from 2 decades of captivity. You would have thrived had you been able to make it through that London winter, had you held on long enough to not kneel in your kitchen or bow your bent head into the open door of the oven. You would have walked out to the green fields of Primrose Hill, the children tucked in their warm coats, to walk towards spring. Had you not been so exhausted and alone, you could have held their small hands to watch the tulips emerge from the ground in green spring, white, pink, yellow. You could have shown them the huge Rembrandt tulips, cream petals edged with your favorite shade of red. And the last poem that I'm going to read tonight is the one that the Metropolitan Museum commissioned from me for the Friedrich exhibit last year. It's called Now Beacon, Now See, which comes from Beckett and has an epigraph from Beckett and quote from him, from Malloy, at the last line of the poem. The epigraph is, much of my life has ebbed away before this shivering expanse to the sound of waves in storm and calm and claws of the surf. And it's responding ekphrastically to the painting by Friedrich called Monk by the Sea. If you believed anything, you believed you had nothing but time. Time for words, both to take them in and to expel them, order them to fit the form you had faith you would find. Now you stand at the edge of the sea, facing the storm that is coming. Seagulls fly above the waves as the sky darkens. After hearing the news, but before knowing what awaits, you exist between despair and hope. As you wander alone on the beach in winter, facing the abyss, it is impossible to tell if it is night or day, winter or spring, the end or the beginning of the end. If you believe anything, you believe you have nothing, no time, no words, no time for words. You stand at the sea before the storm. The only sounds are the cries of the birds and the waves beating the beach. There are no signs to reveal how this will end. The storm is coming, but you do not turn around and retreat. You will watch it gather and approach. You will wait, statue still, betraying nothing. You always loved the beach in winter, the solitude of the sand, unsullied by footprints, the wind piercing your skin, persistent reminder that you are alive. You see the horizon endless against lowering clouds, the sliver of sky that even with the looming storm remains blue. And what you hear, the distant symbols, there is still time, still time. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I've been doing this for a very long time. I think might be going on 8 years. I can't remember, maybe 10. Anyway, my point being that this was an amazing evening of poetry. And Jennifer, I actually read that poem that Diane Seuss chose of yours for Poem a Day. I had, of course, known of you and read some of your other poems, but as the grandmother of a neurodivergent child, I read that poem and it just laid me out. And all that was running through my mind was that we need these poems so desperately. We need more of these poems. We need folks like Jennifer Franklin to speak up and help educate and bring some light to a subject that at least here in this country we hold so much in the dark. Um, for some reason, we just have trouble facing these things that are just so prevalent and are everywhere and touch so many of us. Um, so of course I'm talking about, mental health, mental challenges and so I knew right then I really wanted to try to reach out to you and have you come and share your work.
Thank you,
Um,
Kari, so much. And to keep it real, I hope you couldn't hear this, but Anna was upstairs crying the whole time that I was reading. She's doing pretty well with our move, but I think she was just having a little anxiety about the move. So apologies if you could hear that.
I thought everything was fine, and if you need to go because she needs you
Oh
right
no,
now,
she's okay. She's
okay.
she's with her wonderful stepdad. But yeah, it was surprising because that hasn't happened during a reading before. But just for transparency and the sake of the poems, just to be honest, yeah, it's hard. And she got into this program in um April of 2024 and they still haven't gotten a room for her. That's how crushed they are, with
Yes.
residential placements for the population of severe autism, people with severe autism, adults is a real need for it, and it's very difficult for placements right now. So thank you for understanding.
Oh my gosh, of course. And it was very good of her to share you with us because knowing
Thank
her
you.
and
I'll tell her. I'll
yeah,
tell her
tell
that.
her and hug her and tell her we're really grateful for that. So if you're able and you and David want to and
Yes.
Dan and uh Andy want to turn David and Dan and Andy want to turn on their mics as well. We'll have a little just a little chat about and I thought, well, we're on this subject. First of all, I guess I should here I am wanting to do my question and maybe someone in our audience has a question they would like to ask you, but I don't see anything yet, so I'm going to start. And then if you all have a question, please do so. But I thought maybe we'd talk just a little bit more about the healing power of poetry and music, because it, you know, uh, as I said, the music tonight was poetry to me, and often is. And both of you, David and Jennifer, mentioned how much you enjoyed the music, and that every poetry reading should start with music. And I think, or any kind of reading, and I think so too. So just wondered if y'all wanted to make some comments about because all of you wrote about things that felt healing, and so I'll stop because I know I'm doing all the talking. David, your mic's on. Did you want to go
Okay.
first?
Oh, well, I feel, as I said in the piece Kissing Lightning, that, coming back to Kent and really becoming a part of this Sangha, this community of other writers and poets and mentors like Mage Reagan, poet Mage Reagan, the power that we have to hear each other into speech, the quality of my listening to you can draw something out of you that you wouldn't have be able to say otherwise. It wouldn't the and so I do feel that a lot of my writing comes from this community of other writers, and um, I'm indebted to that. But the wonderful thing about um, the more we've done online readings is we can build communities and nurture communities at great distances. And I've been on Nature of Our Times reading, and Kari, thank you for your beautiful poem, and Emily Knight's on here, and Jennifer Brown. We've been doing online readings around that anthology. And Jennifer Franklin, you said were tuned in, right, to the Poets House reading. And it's like we're building a community with people, some with many of whom I've never met in person. And that's a powerful thing. So I'm grateful for what you're doing, Kari, in this spirit of this series of these online readings, and thank you for that. And it really taps into the healing power of our voices and hearing each other authentically.
Hey, David, I got a question for you. Being that you moved back here, and in the light of poets and poetry that reflects on our children and our people around us, your son looks so much like you. I tend to wonder if you have thoughts that roll through your head when you're watching him do some of the things you used to do in some of the places that you used to do them. And does it take you back there, and can it be put down in writing?
Yeah, can it be put down into writing, Scott?
Yes, yes.
So yeah, absolutely. And my daughter, Ella, I've written a lot about both of my children and about um, family and sort of transgenerational, what gets passed down, and what cycles are repeated and what we want to break, and how we can heal. I feel a lot of the work of writing I can heal backwards. I can heal unwept ancestors, issues and traumas that have not been healed and processed. The work I can do in this generation, in this moment of time, it ripples backwards. And I'm very conscious that I want it to ripple forwards to have a clear channel for my children to grow up, to not have that work to do. There are these unfinished work, and I very much unfinished stories, a continuation of someone's unfinished story. How can I finish it in a way that gives my children the ability to have more freedom to live their lives and to explore who they can be and what work they can do in the world? Um, so I actually have a manuscript finished, a hybrid memoir of poetry and prose called The Prayer Wheel Turns. And it's very much about my family and my children and my mother and my mother's mother. And place in Kent, Ohio, and this place of Kent.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Jennifer, did you want to speak to the idea of further on poetry and healing?
Yes. Annie Carson has a quote that I love that says, "Poetry is not therapy." But I agree with that, but I think it's better than therapy sometimes. It creates something beautiful out of suffering. And so that has been really rewarding for me. I've been through some challenging things in my life, including tongue cancer, and I've written about that in my second book, No Small Gift. And obviously, I've written a lot about and Olivia's profound autism and epilepsy. Um, and it's really helped me to be able to create something and to craft something that A, is a catharsis for me, and B, has meaning for other people. I mean, and that poem that you mentioned that was your introduction to my work, that is the poem that has traveled the furthest for me. So many people have written to me about that. You know, Poem a Day has such an outreach. So many people see it. I got to give a lecture at Yale because someone who runs the literature and humanities department there, Anna Reisman, she read that poem and reached out to me to give a lecture and to teach a class to the medical students. It just, I think that it's probably it won a push card. I think that it may be part of why I got my residency at Hawthorne during in Scotland. So it really and people just still write to me about it, even though it's 3 years ago. I got a student, an undergraduate student in Texas, wrote to me on my website the other day, just saying that they really loved that poem and the images stayed, and it made them realize how they could write, use a title, a long title, and then have a poem that was completely metaphor. So it's still reaching people, which is very gratifying, and especially when it can help people who, for me, especially when it can help people who have children who are on the spectrum or who are ill. A lot of people who just have kids with other illnesses have written to me about my work, so that's been meaningful to me.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing. How about you, Andy or Dan? What about the power of healing through your music or,
Well, I was just sitting thinking, um, I spend almost all my energy and resources trying not to have feelings or think at all.
oh,
And so when I write a song, there's not much of a process to it. It's just kind of comes out. But as far as healing in music goes, given my unwillingness to communicate, because it's just so uncomfortable right now, I had a conversation last Sunday. Dan and I played, and we had a conversation about the way that you can communicate when you're playing music with somebody that you really can't get any other way. We were specifically talking about a turnaround and just knowing what the other person was going to do, and just how comfortable it makes us feel to be able to have that communication but not have to talk. It makes you feel connected.
hmm uh-huh. And both of you, I should tell you all, Dan was playing the harmonica tonight, but he also has an amazing voice.
Yeah,
And so both of
Dan's a
them,
wonderful singer.
both of you are so, I don't want to say gifted because I know you work at it hard. And when you say you're gifted, it sounds like, well, you just stepped into it, and that's not the case. But um, both of you, uh, even though you say you have the ability, both of you have the ability that when someone's listening to you sing and play, they just want to hear more because there's a brutal honesty to your the voice and the way you offer it that is just so forthright and so wonderful. And I take healing from that as well. But Dan, I didn't give you an opportunity to say anything. Did you want to add?
Well, my songwriting process is absolutely the opposite of Andy's. I write from a need to write. I absolutely need to write. It doesn't matter to me whether anybody hears it. I have to write it, and I get a lot of. I write my best songs when I'm sad. So, but uh, and also I'm not as good at this as I should. But the practice of writing is is a real thing. I'm part of a song circle here in Athens that every Tuesday we meet at one of the churches in Athens, and we get a prompt and a challenge, a prompt, uh, and then a challenge that determines how we write the song. And it's writing a song, whether or not you want to write a song, it's surprising how much better you get at it. Um, so the practice of writing is pretty important to me, and I need it.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Haley, did you want to uh, chip in anything tonight as far as poetry and healing?
Oh, well, I write about that as well in my work, writing about chronic illness and depression, and but just hearing so much of that from my students too, even younger writers who are just starting out. I think having this work in the world gives them permission to, and I'm surprised at how easily they go there when maybe some of us at their age couldn't. So I think this work really does a lot for our younger writers too.
Yeah, I agree. I think our kids seem so much more broken now uh, than in my generation, certainly, and as the generations have progressed. And there's a lot going on in this world, and we know that. And as David mentioned, it's building these communities that are so important. What will we do? Someone mentioned the pandemic earlier about, I think it was Barbara was here a little bit earlier and said how wonderful it was that we could all meet during that time because we had this wonderful Zoom that had been developed, not even knowing a pandemic was coming, but thank goodness, because we could reach out and keep in touch. And we were all traveling to Paris and Italy and all kinds of exotic places because we could Zoom. And we were Zooming with poets and writers and singer-songwriters all over the world. And keeping ourselves sane by doing that. And all the efforts being put forth. It's pretty amazing. We're very lucky in that respect. Well, I want to thank all of you for being guests tonight. And of course, I want to thank Haley for every month pulling everything together to broadcast our events. I want to thank everyone who came tonight. That's important for us. And I'll thank now everyone who's going to watch this later, which is always exciting too. You can find the links to our guest books on my website, KariGunterPoet.com. And Andy and Dan, did you want to say something about where we might be finding your music?
Well, we're at the flea market every month.
How about online? Anything online?
You can find me at angemcgillicuddy.bandcamp.com. I'm the only Ange McGillicuddy on the whole internet. That's Ange like Barney called Andy on Mayberry, and McGillicuddy like Lucy's maiden name.
Love it.
You got a poem, Dan?
I have a monthly poetry open mic that I do with Stephanie Kendrick, and it's at the Sidebar in Athens. It's an in-person poetry open mic. We usually have 2 or 3 musical guests and about 15 to 17 poets, and it's a hopping time. There's usually anywhere between 30 and 60 people there. So.
Yes, I've attended that open mic, and it's one of the best I've ever attended. So bravo to you and Stephanie Dan. It's really marvelous. And it's in its third year?
Yeah, it's all
Fourth year?
Stephanie. I'm surprised she keeps me around.
No.
Yeah, it's
You're a
it's
good
all Stephanie.
pair. You're a good pair because she does
We have fun.
the bookkeeping part of it. You do all of the atmospheric part of it. So it's just so perfect. But I want to thank you all for being here tonight. This has been unbelievable, better than I could have ever even dreamed. I can't wait for everyone out there in the world to get to hear this recording. So join me next month to hear the masterful J.D. Isop and Appalachia's own Mandy Fugate Scheffel. Mandy talks about her life of addiction and recovering from addiction, and it's so incredibly moving. J.D. Isop has a sound all his own, and he's marvelous. And Andy will be back. I'm not sure if Dan's coming, but if he is, that's fine too. I'm so happy about that.
He behaves.
So I'll plan on seeing everyone next month. And so until we meet again, friends, good night and be safe.